So, Aaron, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm really great. Thank you. I'm looking out at the beautiful ocean in Costa Rica right now.
That sounds terrible.
Yes.
My my heart cries for you right now.
It's it's quite a view. We've had a bit of rain here.
Hmm.
At nighttime, it rains right now,
Hmm.
and it's everything is so beautiful and lush and so much. The air is just like filled with so much prana right now. So we're busy breathing it all in.
Yeah, it's not a bad gig, right?
No, no.
There are some days, and I'm sure maybe I don't maybe you agree, but there's some days where I wake up even here in San Francisco and I'm just like, wow, this is really my life. This is for real.
Yeah, yeah, we have to feel very blessed a lot to be able to do the work that we do, and I think follow our dharma. So I think whatever powers may be, all the time that I have this opportunity to do what I'm doing.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. So I'm gonna dive right into the show and ask you why yoga.
Oh my God. So why yoga? Well, that answer changes on a yearly basis sometimes.
Right, right.
Um, I mean, why yoga? When I started doing yoga when I was 18, it was all about the stretching and the workout and to get my sweat on because I was young and restless.
Yeah.
Um, and then when I got to be about 29, 30, I met my teacher. And at that moment, my body started to fall apart. And then yoga took on a very different meaning for me. Yoga, and interestingly enough, right at that moment, I started saying to myself, like, there's got to be more than this. There's got to be more than just hitting the yoga mat and sweating and physically feeling good, but maybe not spiritually completely full.
Sure.
And so that I started making inquiries, and then that's how I met my teacher. And right at that moment, my body really started to change and shift, and I had to really back off from the quote unquote physical practice a lot, and start to take on more meditation and more inner work,
Hmm. Hmm.
getting more into kriyas and pranayama and this sort of thing. And so then yoga started to become something very different for me. And I think when I met my teacher, it became more about the devotion and to developing a relationship
Hmm.
with, I don't want to say God, but I think that the divine is a good word.
Sure.
Um, and then that really kind of prepared me for what happened, when I was in India. I came face to face with a boulder, which pummeled it into my leg
Ouch.
up in the Himalayas. And I, I don't think I could have gotten through that experience without having that, deep practice and deep connection into faith. I think it was only my connection to faith in my practice that really got me through that, and then has taken me into this journey now in Costa Rica. But now I would say in the last 2.5 years, my practice has shifted a lot again. And I think it's shifted because I'm a little older.
Okay.
and um, and the daunting question is like, am I fulfilling life's purpose?
Yeah.
And I don't mean like, there's some sort of purpose I'm supposed to fulfill in life. I think the great purpose is, knowing myself at every level and really intrinsically understanding who I am. And so that's been sort of a burning question that has been growing and growing and growing over the last 2.5 years. And uh, that there's a part of me that really yearns to understand myself at all levels and understand life at all levels. And so that's been where my practice has been heading recently.
What does your practice look like for you? Is it, I mean, so you're down in Costa Rica. Do you have any favorite teachers down there? Are you practicing more online? Is it more just self-led? What does that look like for you?
Well, my practice has been pretty much self-led since I was about 28.
Okay.
Um, Before, probably right around 27, 28, I really was into Ashtanga. So I was always on the hunt for like good, Mysore practices. And then when I met my teacher, my practice started becoming more self-led. Um, and then I also had my teacher in New York that I went to religiously,
Got it. Got it.
about once a week.
Okay.
And that was with Alan Finger, who is an amazing teacher in New York. He's been teaching yoga for like 50 years.
Got it. Got it.
And so then, but for the most part, my practice has been self-led. And when I come to my mat, it has been about probably for about 15 years, 16 years, really about like just kind of, I guess, testing myself, like testing how long can I stay here? What happens if I just sit here for a while? What happens if I breathe a certain way? Testing out different pranayama practices. For about a year and a half, I went really deep into some pranayama practices, like really deep into them.
Sure.
And then also doing mudras and different kriyas. So right now my practice has shifted a little bit, but mostly it's a lot of like so there's one part which is meditation and pranayama. And in the meditation, some of it, I'm doing a practice around self-inquiry, and then focusing on my guru mantra. And then the physical part is very varied. A lot of my physical practice, it depends on sort of the day of the week, but a lot of it is really about maintenance, like just taking care of this body and trying to keep it up to speed.
Yeah, that makes sense. That totally makes sense. That totally makes sense. And it's also a good reminder and nice to hear like things are going to change, especially your body, and you have to be able to keep up with that in your practice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the body does change. I used to be able to put my foot behind my head, and then somewhere around 32, 33, that started to change. And there's like this really famous yoga teacher. I think he used to be in San Francisco and then he moved. But he put up a post, this photo of a picture of himself. I think it was about 4 years ago. And he
Which
was
yoga
like,
teacher was this?
oh, I just don't want to say right
Oh,
now.
okay. Fair enough.
I don't mind talking about people. I just won't mention their
Right. No, I feel that. I get it.
But he like, it was really comical for me because I remember 4 years ago thinking like, oh yeah, wait a 10 years or 15 years and see if you're still like, talking about, the importance of opening up your hips. And I mean, literally, it was less than 4 years, and he put hashtag TBT, and he's like, yeah, 4 years later, and I'm noticing I can't do what I used to do, so yoga is starting to change for me. And it's really amusing now because I look at myself when I was a young yoga teacher, and some of the things I used to say, I'm just mortified by now. I think that getting older and being a yoga teacher has given me a lot more grace and a lot more compassion. I think I've definitely developed a lot more compassion for people and where they're at, and patience. My patience is something that grows as a teacher, which is something I've not always had. So I'm very thankful for this process.
Yeah, I agree. So you've been teaching now for how many years?
21, 22 years.
Wow. And I know you have, so I'm going to talk about that too. I know you have a lot going on. Throughout your teaching process, you wrote a teacher training, you did a 500-hour teacher training, you wrote a book, you've done a lot of traveling and teaching. You've done a lot.
Yes. Yeah, I've been very blessed. I moved, so I was teaching before this, but my teaching really took root in 2001 when I moved to New York. And I think before that, I wasn't really clear that I wanted to be a teacher. So I was putting my foot in many different areas. But in 2001, it was really the end of 2000, I made the decision like, I'm going to be a yoga teacher.
Right.
And this is what I'm going to do. And so I moved to New York with literally 2 bags and just decided I was going to teach yoga privately. And then what ended up happening was I started like, a class that grew to like 2 classes a month, and then it quickly grew to four classes a month, and then that quickly grew to 8 classes a month, and then that grew to like 10, 12 classes a month, and then I ended up opening a studio in New York. So
wow, I didn't know you opened up a studio out there.
Yeah, yeah, and I had a studio. I mean, really, I had a physical space for the better part of almost 8 years.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a long time.
And I was very blessed. I decided earlier on that I wanted to travel and teach. And so I started doing yoga retreats, just a couple a year, and then that quickly grew. At one point, one year, I think I calculated like teaching 7 retreats.
Wow.
And that was in 2009. And so, and then I ended up coming across Costa Rica and finding this place in Costa Rica and then opening up a yoga retreat center.
How did that come about for you? Like, how did you, I mean, that's got to be a huge transition. How did it go from, I'm living in New York, or I have a studio there, and then I go to Costa Rica, and you just magically have this plan that you're like, I'm going to open up this spot. This is what it's going to look like.
So I mean, my studio in New York, we created like a very solid community.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, and then, taking people on retreat, and a lot of those people were the same people. A lot of the same people ended up coming over and over and over. And I was leading a retreat in Costa Rica in 2007, and I just happened to see this property. And I had already been toying with leaving New York. I knew like I wasn't going to be there forever. And I didn't want to be there forever. I love New York. I'm not dissing New York at all for anybody who's from New York listening to this. But I knew that I wasn't going to be there forever. And so I started considering going to, there was a few places on my radar. One of them was India. Mm-hmm. And that idea was sort of in the back of my mind, and I kind of researched it and made the decision like India wasn't the place.
Sure.
And then I just happened to be driving down the road in Costa Rica to a place that I was leading retreats at. And then there was a Century 21 sign outside this property. And I remember like there was like this tunnel in the property that you could see from the outside on the road looking through the gates. And at the end of the tunnel was the ocean. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing that and thinking to myself, this is home. Mm-hmm. And then, a couple of weeks later, we signed like a contract to have the property. And then a few months later, we came down and finalized everything. So it happened very quickly.
How long did it take to get everything up and running and going and the process of building? And because there was nothing there.
There was nothing here. We had to do everything from scratch. So we signed it in February of 2009. Mm-hmm. And then by January, I think it was January 28th or 29th in 2010, we opened up our doors.
Wow. So that was definitely a labor of love.
It still is.
You could have almost had a baby.
Yes. Funny you say that. Actually, I'm thinking about that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely. I mean, people have all kinds of interesting ideas about opening up businesses in foreign countries. It is really a labor of love. I've never met a foreign business owner where it wasn't challenging. And, but it's also very rewarding. If you can get past like the first few years, mm-hmm. like I would really say it took us 4 years, maybe even 5, mm-hmm. Until we really started to find our rhythm and, work out all the kinks and
right.
figure things out.
Right.
So now things are like a lot more chill, but it wasn't like that during the first couple of years, let me tell you.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. There's so much that you have to discover, and you're still figuring out like the voice of the property and what it feels like and so on and so forth. So I totally get it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I actually wrote for Yoga Anonymous a 5 or 6 part series on how to open up your own yoga retreat center.
Mm.
So if anybody's ever interested, they can read that. It's a great series, but it's like A to Z on how to do it.
No, I keep saying actually, I've been to obvious. So I'm going to Costa Rica. I'm going down to your property. For those of you listening, I've got a retreat coming up in March of 2018, and we're bringing a bunch of students down there. And as we keep talking about the property and you, I'm like, man, Aaron's got it right. I want to move to Costa Rica and open up my own place. Like I'm slowly watching you in the background. Okay, I got to write a book next. Then I got to go buy a property in Costa Rica.
Well, I can save you the worry, and you can just come and like we can do something together. So
Perfect.
save yourself the trouble.
I'm just like, I don't want to teach, 12 public classes a week in San Francisco for the rest of my life. But, hosting a couple of retreats and then having friends come down and hang out in Costa Rica sounds like a good time.
It's a nice life. It is a nice life. It's very, very blessed. But there's a lot to make this place happen, and
For sure.
like this year, Costa Rican tourism has gone down like 30%, and that's definitely impacted our business. So
Oh, wow. Okay.
there's things that you ebb and flow with, but I think like that's where yoga really gives me like grounding,
Mm-hmm.
is that just being able to ebb and flow with life is the seed of my practice, the major benefit of my practice. So it's kind of like, okay, well, there's not so many people, then I get to go surfing or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not a bad second option to do, right?
Exactly.
That's awesome. I love it. So you have at the property right now, you have 200-hour teacher trainings. You have a 300-hour teacher training. I know when people reach out to me that they want to go and do a teacher training elsewhere, you're kind of my first go-to. I always send them your way. So tell us about what you have going on the property.
Well, I mean, for a good chunk of the year, we have a lot of groups coming. So groups like you're bringing your yoga group, and a lot of those groups happen in November, the end of November, December, January, February, March, and a
Mm-hmm.
little bit in April.
Mm-hmm.
And so to kind of feed my passion for teaching, I've started doing the yoga teacher trainings. Used to do one a year,
Mm-hmm.
and it was called the 1 month immersion.
Mm-hmm.
And then I decided to change that and add 2 a year. And then this year we've actually added 4.
Wow.
And then we've added, before there were just 200 hours, and now we've just added the 300 hour. And the focus of the immersion, I think there's a few driving forces behind it, but one of them is that I don't think that first of all, I want to say that I don't think that any teacher training is better or style is better than another teacher training. I often will tell people you should go do a teacher training that lasts for 6 months, but then you should also go do an immersion.
Right.
And I think that both experiences can be really potent and powerful for people because, over an extended one, you really start to learn the information over an extended period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas an immersion, if it's done well, you really start to get into a rhythm of what it's like to have a real yoga practice
Right.
every single day. And so every morning we're up by 5 o'clock meditating, doing neti, doing our morning rituals,
Right.
and then we practice silence for a while, and then people come back and we do some more yoga, talk about some philosophy, then we go and eat some great food, and then people can rest and relax on the beach, in nature. And then we come back and we, do some stuff in the afternoon, and then we have a great dinner, and everybody's in bed by 7:30, 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
So, so it's a really great place for people to really kind of immerse into what is it really like. Like, I've heard what a yogic lifestyle can be like and the effects of it.
Right.
But I can't do it because I have my job, I work until this time, I have kids or whatever. And so this really gives people permission to step out of their life and to really dive into who they really are as people.
Right.
And for lack of better words, clean out the contents of their mind. Like, let's just get rid of all of that stuff that we don't need and direct our attention and focus on something that's really potent and that's going to really be transformative.
Yeah, something that's actually going to be supportive and sustainable as well.
Exactly. Yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
And so it really gives people like a chance to do like some of these practices, like Nadi Shodhana. How many people actually do Nadi Shodhana, alternate nostril breathing every day?
Right.
How many people actually do like Kapalabhati? It's like we do that maybe once a week if we go to a yoga class.
Right. Totally. But having that practice at home just goes out the window.
But then actually doing it every day, it's like, wow, like this is what it really feels like to do Kapalabhati practice like every day for 1 month.
Right.
So that's what I'm doing. That's what drives me. And it's fascinating to me, like to see how much it works. Like I really don't do much. I mean, I do, but I don't. But I don't because all I'm doing is having people come and then I tell them like, okay, we're going to do Kapalabhati. We're going to breathe. And then we're going to watch our thoughts and, and do this meditation practice, but I'm really not doing anything. It's the practice that does it.
Right.
And
yeah.
That fascinates me to no end, like how transformative the practice is.
Yeah, I agree. I tell my students that all the time when they're like, "Thank you for class," and I'm like, "You did the work. I just sit up there and said things."
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's great. Well, Aaron, I'm so happy to have you on the show today and to have the listeners just get to know you and check you out. And Aaron's got a really good book. If you haven't read it, you should check it out. And I'll make sure I put links to that in the show notes. And I'll make sure I link all your retreats that you got going on, and also the teacher trainings. And for anyone that's listening, if they want to do an immersion teacher training, go check out Aaron's teacher training in Costa Rica. It's a beautiful. I can't wait.
I can't wait for you to get here, Danny.
It's
really exciting to have you here.
We're counting the days down, and it's not even until next year. Right on.
It'll be here before we know it.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to say to the listeners before we take off today?
No. That I feel like that's good. Hopefully they'll all be able to come down one day and experience paradise at Blue Osa.
Yeah, I love it. I'll let everyone know how it goes. All right,
thanks
everyone.
so much, Danny.
Until next time, this is Aaron and Danny saying peace out.
Yeah, have a great one.